We're now going to move on to Charlotte Brown, who's going to talk about, she is the Joint Managing Director of Resilience Organisations, and she's going to be talking about supporting critical infrastructure recovery. Over to you, Charlotte.
Thanks very much, Belinda. So I'm just presenting on behalf of myself and Liam Witherspoon at the University of Auckland. So our project had two main parts. The first part was the development of a spatio-temporal database of critical infrastructure performance. So we've learned from past events that it's so important to capture perishable data. If we don't do this, we're not going to really understand the vulnerability that our infrastructure networks have to these types of events, and therefore we're not going to understand how best to improve resilience of these networks and the services that they provide to communities. So we set about collecting all the data that we could around transportation, energy, communications, water, fast-moving consumer goods, banking and health. So a really wide range of critical infrastructure services. And we were looking at both physical damage, the loss of service due to that physical damage, and also the restoration through time. And we did that through gathering the physical data damage, but also surveying the likes of fast-moving consumer goods providers to understand how they adapted and dealt with the disruption. So we've done a fair bit of preliminary analysis on this data. We've looked at things like outages through time, so you can see the graph there for the electricity disruption. Analysis of damage modes on the right-hand side, you can see the road network and analysis of what led to the asset damage, whether it was flood, landslide or bridge damage. Sector and location disruption analysis, so both looking across one infrastructure, but also looking within a geographical area and really trying to understand the interdependencies between the infrastructure and how one disruption in one network cascades into another network. So we're really at the beginning of making the most of this database, and we're connecting with a number of other ongoing research projects, a couple of Endeavour projects, some have already been mentioned before, to really make the most of this database and learn and build on that experience. The next slide. Thanks. The next part of this project was, which was actually done first, was development of some policy briefs. We did this really soon after we got the funding, so within the first four to 5 months. Based on international lessons learnt, we created a couple of policy briefs to support those organisations that were undertaking recovery programs for critical infrastructure. The first was on recovery lessons, which covered things like governance, operational program management, recovery sequencing and coordination. So which infrastructure do we deal with first and which parts of the network to maximise the benefit to the community. Recovery resourcing, community engagements, managing information needs both within the program but also externally with communities, and decision making. The second policy brief was focused on how we could build back resilience within that recovery program. So not building back vulnerabilities into the networks, but making sure we're building back better. So within that, we had a bit of a description of the different types of approaches you can take to make these assessments. So both a risk-based and an impact-based approach. So the risk-based looks at specific hazards and the damage that are expected from those different hazards. And the impact-based is a more hazard-agnostic approach based on the criticality of different infrastructure. So the part of that brief was criticality assessment and prioritisation. So as you can see there's a link to the final policy briefs and supplementary reports that back that up. You'll see that the database that we've created of the damage is not currently published, but if you're interested in that data, that you can speak to myself or Liam. And just lastly, a thanks to all the organisations that were involved in this project. It really was a big team effort. So thanks very much.